everybody, and welcome to AMC Movie Talk for movie fans. I'm your host, Sinead DeVries, and this is the Daily Show, where we bring you the latest news from the world of movies, plus some insight into what it all means. Joining us, as always, is Editor-in-Chief for AMC Movie News, John Campea.
Well, greetings and salutations, everybody. Welcome to the best damn movie-related podcast on the planet Earth, coming to you live from right here at the AMC New headquarters here in Burbank, California, and we are so glad you decided to make us part of your day.
Also joining us today is correspondent for Nerdist.com, Clark Wolf.
Hey guys, thanks so much for having me.
Thanks for coming, Clark.
Thank you very much, John. It's nice to be here.
And AMC's Mark Ellis.
It's going to take more than one studio switch to get rid of me. Plus, this is the very watch that Clark Wolf helped me pick out, so it's a very united panel here today.
That is true. That is very true.
It's a lot of simpatico going on over here.
Very simpatico.
So disturbing news broke yesterday as Harrison Ford was involved in a single-person plane crash landing. The 72-year-old star of Star Wars and Indiana Jones is an avid and experienced pilot who was flying a World War II PT-22 aircraft when engine troubles forced the actor to make an emergency landing on a nearby golf course. Reports say that Ford walked away from the crash landing, but he was clearly injured and taken to the hospital. A tweet from Ford's son, Ben Ford, said the elder Ford is battered, but okay. His publicist said, Ford is expected to make a full recovery. John, your reaction when you first heard of Ford's crash landing?
We were sitting here in the headquarters doing some technical tests and stuff like that. It was me, Ray, Jonathan, and Dennis. And Jonathan, out of nowhere, I think it was you, Jonathan, that came out and said, Harrison Ford's in a car crash, or in a plane crash. And we're like, what? Okay, what? From who? Who's saying that? Blah, blah, blah. And in a moment, I just had this horrible feeling that I haven't felt since the morning I heard that Robin Williams died. Like, it was just this sinking gut. Harrison Ford, whether he likes it or not, and he would probably be really creeped out about this, has played such an important part in my childhood and who I am as a human being. Yeah. Like, countless hours he has babysat me, whether it's watching Star Wars or Indiana Jones or all the movies he's done. And it was just a sinking, horrible, horrible feeling. Now, as Jonathan started to read off the details, like he was flying a single-man plane, he landed it himself on this golf course, I started to feel a little bit more relieved about it. I got to tell you, though, man, so discouraged to then, I heard he was okay. I heard there were witness reports that he got out of the plane, he walked away, he was fully conscious when he got into the ambulance and they took him away. They said he had some gashes on his forehead, whatever. But then I'm reading I won't name the sites, but I'm reading some big-name reputable sites. Headlines, Harrison Ford in critical condition following plane crash. And it's like, if that was the first headline I had read, and I hadn't already read he walked away from it, all this kind of stuff, I would have been panicking. So it's just people trying to take advantage of a potentially bad situation. But, my first reaction, heart sank. Total heart sank, and such relief to hear this guy. But Ford right now has the worst luck. He's on the set of Star Wars, the Millennium Falcon breaks his leg.
That was what I was thinking. Yeah. That's exactly what I thought. I was like, no one let this man, if a doorway is dangerous from him, don't let him fly planes. What are we thinking? We need him. Everybody.
Where were you when you heard about this, and how did you react?
I was at home, and I think I was just scrolling through Twitter, but fortunately the first thing I saw was Peter Mayhew's tweet, which said critical, critical to serious to stable to injured. Who is he? Han Solo or Wolverine? And I was like, thank you, Peter Mayhew. This is excellent. So fortunately, that was the way I found out, and I didn't have this like false sense of urgent, of terror.
Dread,
yeah, that something horrible had happened. But seriously, I just hope he's careful. I know he's an experienced pilot, and that's not the issue. But goodness gracious.
Yeah, I mean, I was doing what I usually do at 4 p.m. sleeping, and I woke up and I saw this, and the way that we get our news now is through Twitter, and so you see all these tweets come in, and immediately you see Harrison Ford was in a plane crash. As soon as I saw that it was a plane crash, that's when your heart sinks, because you usually don't walk away from plane crashes. Car crashes are one thing. A plane crash is usually a death sentence. So you hear that, and then you also hear what an adventurous guy Harrison Ford has always been. He flies helicopters. He rescues people. He's a pilot. This really made me nervous, and then you start to see your Twitter feed, and that's why you follow a variety of different people on Twitter, so you get a nice smorgasbord of what's actually going on. Then you see the more reputable news services that are tweeting that he's okay. Right. And I think that the reason why they reported it as critical condition is because, this is what our buddy Ken Knapsack told me, is that because if it's damage to your head, then it counts as critical initially before you become downgraded or upgraded to stable condition. So I think that's why it was critical initially, but still, the fact that he walked away and the fact that it was on Penmar Golf Course. I've played Penmar Golf Course before, okay? This is not Augusta National. It is a very small golf course in Los Angeles. So the fact that he was able to land it and not hit a tree and actually hit a fair, I can't hit a fairway at Penmar, okay? This guy hit it with a plane and he went down. And so it's very, very, that proves what a good pilot he is, that he was able to land that sucker.
That's right.
And and now that we know he's okay and that he's going to be fine and all this kind of stuff, now that we know that, I can share what thought went through my head later in the day. Like after I found he was okay, it's like, can you imagine the Star Wars premiere if they're like the glum cloud that would be hanging over the Star Wars premiere had Harrison Ford, and then you're thinking, what if they wrote it so there's a continuation for him for Star Wars Episode 8 and all that kind of stuff.
There's all this
none of which is important.
Yeah, exactly.
None of which is important if he was hurt, if something horrible happened to him. But now that we know he's okay.
Yeah, but you also how's the Force Awakens going to play out anyway? Are we going to lose some of our lead characters? Is Han Solo, was he going to die in Episode 7 anyway? And then you see, I wonder if they had to write him out. So, it's good news all around that the guy's alive and that we can, because Harrison Ford is in that kind of mode in his career now where he's back in Star Wars. He's back. There's going to be another Blade Runner.
Probably Indiana Jones.
He's making all the movies that we always wanted him to make again. And so I'm just glad that the dude's okay.
Sinead, I'm just curious. You weren't here when that goes down. Where were you when you heard about Harrison Ford crashing?
Well, I was at home and I got an alert on my phone. It was ABC News and it said Harrison Ford in critical condition. Ugh. So then I was like, okay, he's gonna die. That sounds awful, but that was my first thought, was he's gonna die. And I called my mom and she's like, Sinead, I'm watching the news right now. They said he walked away. And I was like, all right, well, if he walked away, he's not gonna die.
Yeah, he's okay. All right, what do we got next?
Warner Brothers CEO Kevin Tsujihara was recently speaking at a media and technology conference when he made the following comments regarding his DC movies versus Marvel movies. Tsujihara said the following: "The worlds of DC are very different. They're steeped in realism, and they're a little bit edgier than Marvel's movies." Mark, what do you make of his comments?
As realistic as the Green Lantern is, I got to take some umbrage with these comments, and I'm sure that the broader context was something a little different. I'm sure he's not trying to poke the bear that is Marvel, but when you say something like that, it strikes me as odd. Now, look, if you want to say that the Guardians of the Galaxy isn't as realistic and or as gritty as something like Batman Begins, I totally agree with you. But when you look at these universes as a whole, and you see that the Avengers is a group of dudes, and then there's an alien in there, and they're taking on other aliens. But then you look at something like Man of Steel, where you have an alien fighting an alien in a fake city. I don't know how you get that is more realism or that's edgier than anything that happens.
Because he grew up on a farm, Mark.
In a Marvel universe, because he's a farm boy and Kevin Costner was his dad. I mean, I don't understand why. It seems like every time that Marvel references DC, it's like, oh no, it's really cool that everybody's making these cool comic book movies. And DC, I get it. They feel like the little brother right now, even though they were around long before Marvel. As far as films go, DC is saying, oh no, we got to take a shot. Neither one of these is Motley Crue. Neither one of these is Nirvana. They aren't two totally different things. They're all comic book films, and some of them are going to be more realistic than others. Some are going to have an edge to them, but I don't really think you need to have a dividing line like this.
When you say that Marvel, whenever they talk, everything's fine, everything's cool, lest you forget that Captain America press conference where Anthony Mackie, remember when it was first announced that Batman vs. Superman and Captain America, at the time just known as Captain America 3, was going to come out on the same day, and they had that press, and Anthony Mackie started talking a whole lot of smack at that table, which was great. I love it. And I actually think Tsujihara, I think you're going to see a lot of playful banter going to be going back and forth. And I think this is going to be like professional wrestling. I think we're going to see some kind of fake rivalry going on here. These companies actually don't have a lot of beef with each other. I think they actually get along pretty well. Yeah. So that's going to be interesting to see how they do that. But, here's my thing about realism when it comes to these superhero movies. I like superhero movies to define for them what is realistic. Now, if you tell me your world, your cinematic universe you're creating, there is a planet called Krypton. This guy comes here because of the yellow sun. He has these certain abilities, and he can do this, he can do this, he can do this, and this is what happens. Okay, now you have created for me what you say in your universe is realistic. Now stick within that. See, I like movies that stay realistic to their own definitions of what is realistic. So that's cool. Now, so if Tsujihara means, hey, look, we set up certain parameters and then we just don't go, look, our Superman, unlike the old Superman, can't tear off, saran wrap S from his chest and throw it against other superheroes, then stick within that. That's cool. So I liked his comments just because I think they're playful. I think it's them's fighting words. I think both Marvel and DC know there's this whole vicious war online between DC fanboys and Marvel fanboys. And both of them are just sitting back, like DC and Marvel both sitting back just going, cha-ching, this is awesome. Keep fighting, you guys. This is great. Anyway, Clark, what do you think?
Well, there's no weight on this question for me, as AMC Movie Talk viewers might know. No, but, it's funny. So I think that there's a couple of things about this. The first thing is maybe back in the, Dark Knight time, when the Dark Knight came out and it was the first time we had seen a less cartoony version of the Joker on the big screen, Batman as the Tumbler instead of the Batmobile, like, the military inspired suit, those types of things.
Right.
And then you have the first Iron Man come out and Downey's there and he's throwing one-liners and AC/DC's played in the trailer and all that stuff. Maybe I could see this type of argument being made. But even on the other hand of that, to me, when I think of edgy and I think of realistic, what I think of are, even as far back in the first Iron Man, we're dealing with the weapons trade, we're dealing with terrorism, we're dealing with corporations, we're dealing with science. To me, that's actually pretty realistic and legit fodder to be discussed. Now that we're in present time and it's 2015, I don't know if this gentleman from the WB saw Winter Soldier, but to me, like, that was not a frou-frou superhero movie.
No, not at all.
And this is not, America's Boy Scout fighting Nazis. This was, this was a very edgy and gritty movie, especially for Marvel and especially for Captain America. So I just don't think that this argument really holds as much water as maybe it could have. But I do appreciate the playful banter and the fanboys and girls who are Team Marvel and DC. They're very active, and as I know. So yeah. But I mean, look, I like the way Marvel is going, and I'm excited to see what's next for DC, because that's another thing. I mean, if you want to include the Chris Nolan movies, that's one thing. But, in terms of the Zack Snyder DC Cinematic Universe, we've only seen one movie so far. We've seen a lot more from Marvel. So it's kind of hard to compare and contrast at this point.
And right now, Tsujihara is kind of like, don't pay no attention to that green glow you see behind that curtain. Pay no attention to that whatsoever. All right, what's next?
So buy or sell. As many of you know, Pixar has announced that a Toy Story 4 is on the way, but it looks like it could be a very different Toy Story. You've messed me up now.
It's all over the place. It's all going to hell.
Than we have ever seen before. In a recent interview, Pixar Animation Studios president Jim Morris said the following: "The third movie ended in a beautiful way and completed a trilogy. I think this movie is not part of that trilogy. It is a separate story. It is not a continuation of the end of the story of Toy Story 3. Temporarily it is, but it will be a love story. It will be a romantic comedy. It will not put much focus on the interaction between the characters and children." These comments seem consistent to past comments made by Pixar head John Lasseter when the project was first announced. Lasseter stated, "Toy Story 3 ended Woody and Buzz's story with Andy so perfectly that for a long time, we never even talked about doing another Toy Story movie. But when Andrew, Pete, Lee, and I came up with this new idea, I just could not stop thinking about it. It was so exciting to me, I knew we had to make this movie. And I wanted to direct it myself." Clark, do you buy or sell this apparent new direction for Toy Story 4?
I buy it. I definitely buy it for two reasons. And I think I think what Disney's getting at here is very smart. The first thing is, I completely agree. Buzz and Woody and Andy, that story wrapped up so perfectly. And if you're in the same age range as I am, you kind of were Andy's age when these movies came out. And so I feel like I went on this journey, and now as an adult, it's like it's time to close that chapter. So going forward, I think it's absolutely brilliant to kind of take it into a different direction. And I think what Disney has done is looked at the success of things like Frozen. Because when I hear a romantic comedy, I hear maybe a female toy will be more, heavily featured. And I think it's super, super smart. When any kid I meet, they love Frozen. There's boys, girls, different countries, backgrounds. It doesn't matter. Everybody loves Frozen. So in order to I think it's super smart to take these characters or take this universe in a direction that maybe has a female involved, maybe has a little bit of a love story. And also, if you look at the Lego movie, if you look at Barbie, which Diablo Cody is taking a pass at the script, they need to stay in the game. So let's reinvent this and still, love the trilogy that we had before, but move forward in a new direction. I think it's really smart.
Mark?
I'm totally buying this. Yeah, I mean, as much as I wanted to see the toys react to Andy and his college days, frowning upon what he's doing in his dorm
room.
With
his newly acquired drug problem.
He's hanging out with Sid. Sid's about him. They're friends
Look,
now.
I'd love to spend $4.20 with Woody and Buzz, but I think that this is the right way to go, is that look, toys, this universe can be so huge. It's not limited to a cowboy and an astronaut. There's so many different ways that you can take this. And I think the romantic comedy direction makes so much sense. Like what Clark was saying, when I was a kid, I had an older sister, and she had Barbies, and I had G.I. Joes, and occasionally they would attempt to mate in the bathtub. So this would be such a new way to take this universe. Plus, I know that you're excited about directing the film, but you also get excited about the dollar signs, the built-in phenomenon that is the Toy Story franchise. It's a home run.
Yeah, I love these comments. For me, this is a big buy because, number one, we're just talking about Toy Story 4, so that's awesome. But number two, that they are cognizant of the fact that, look, that story, that emotional thematic theme that we had going throughout the first three about the relationship of the toys with their kid, we finished it. Yeah. We wrapped it up so perfectly. If we now go in, I forget the little girl's name who Andy passed the toys on to, but if we just now, let's call her Sarah for argument's sake. If we just now make it about the toys and Sarah, we're just rehashing something that we did, and that's not what we at Pixar want to do. So I love that they're going to try something new. Does it make me a little bit nervous because it's a different thing from their formula? Sure it does, but that's what makes it exciting at the same time. So I think it's a terrific idea.
And in Toy Story 3, we really saw the toys just go against other toys, and you really didn't need a lot of humans in that film at all. These toys are so rich in character development that you don't need humans at all if you don't want them.
Yeah, I agree. All right, what's next?
The first trailer for the upcoming Owen Wilson film No Escape has just hit the web. In the film, Wilson stars an American businessman as he and his family settle into their new home in Southeast Asia. Suddenly finding themselves in the middle of a violent political uprising, they must frantically look for a safe escape as rebels mercilessly attack the city. No Escape hits AMC theaters on September 2nd. John, buy or sell the look of No Escape?
Surprisingly enough, I'm going to buy it, actually. I used to be a huge Owen Wilson fan, And here's a part of my humanity. Back in the day when, the incident happened where it was reported he attempted suicide or whatever, as a comedic actor that I attached myself as funny and comedic, stuff like that, that threw a wet towel on me. It shouldn't have. It's unfair that that's the case. But if I'm going to be honest, that's what I did. And I had a hard time because I think You, Me, Dupree came out after that. No, it came out before that. But then he did some more stuff after that. And I remember watching it and just maybe feeling a little bit of sadness watching him. So, and that's totally unfair. I love that he's trying something like this. I love that he's trying to do like a gritty family kind of drama. This is not a family film, but about a family. He's playing a different character than I'm used to ever seeing him play. And I think that's great. The story of the film also seems engaging. I like seeing Pierce Brosnan show up as the badass who's going to try to help this family. You're going to love it here, whatever. I'm a huge, unapologetic Lake Bell fan. I love Lake Bell. So seeing her pop up in anything is good. Now, the trailer was not a beautifully put together trailer. I thought the trailer was a little sloppy, could have been better, but because of Wilson going outside of his comfort zone, because of the story seems really interesting and cool, I'm going to give this a buy, Mark.
I'm going to give this a buy too. I watched the trailer and then I watched the Ray Liotta film No Escape from the mid-90s. That's how much I like this trailer. Look, your point about Owen Wilson is so good because Owen Wilson, when he has been in more dramatic roles, he's been surprisingly really well. Yeah. And Behind Enemy Lines was really cool. Night at the Museum. I think Behind Enemy Lines, something like that. If this trailer felt more like that to me, something like Marley and Me too, where the end of Marley and Me.
Surprisingly good in that.
This movie is not going to make me cry. This movie can do whatever it wants to. It's not going to make me cry as much as Marley and Me. Okay, but as far as the subject matter goes, you're right. Seeing Pierce Brosnan really lended some sort of credibility to it as well. I think this is a good expansion of Owen Wilson's talents.
Clark?
Yeah, my reaction to this trailer was I watched it this morning and I thought to myself, I was like, because as John and Mark and some of you may know, I'm a huge horror fan. I love horror movies. And so I was watching this trailer and I thought to myself, this looks like a horror movie to me. Why? Like World War Z? Or maybe, why am I getting these flashes of this? I look it up. It's the Dowdles. It is the Dowdle brothers wrote and directed As Above, So Below, Quarantine, Devil, and a handful of other things. And I think that this is super, super cool and super exciting. And because if you think about it in terms of, especially if you're a genre fan like I am, replace the rebels in this Asian country with zombies or it's the same type of story. So I think these directors lend themselves very, very well to this type of material. And as for Owen Wilson, I love him in all of Wes Anderson's movies, even the more, the less flashy, funny roles that he plays for Wes Anderson and more of the dramatic things and the sad and somber things I enjoy him in. So it's a buy for me, and I'm excited for the Dowdles. Go Dowdles!
Hey, all right, what's next?
Plans for the upcoming third standalone Wolverine film seem to continue to move forward. In a recent tweet, director James Mangold claimed that the new film will begin shooting early next year. This comes on the heels of a Professor Xavier actor Patrick Stewart claiming that the next Wolverine film could focus on an adventure with Professor X and Wolverine together. Wolverine 3 is currently slated to hit AMC theaters on March 3rd, 2017. Mark, do you buy or sell Fox moving ahead with another Wolverine film?
I totally buy Fox moving ahead with another Wolverine film. Look, Hugh Jackman is in that point in his career where I want to get as many Wolverine movies out of this guy as we possibly can before we inevitably, because he doesn't regenerate like Wolverine does. So I want to get as many stories because I think Wolverine is such an amazing character. He's so complex, and Hugh Jackman knocks that out of the park every time. I love that last standalone Wolverine film. And I think that him and Patrick Stewart as Professor X in a Wolverine movie together is a really intriguing, maybe it's a road comedy. I don't know what it is, but I want to see
with a banjo soundtrack.
Absolutely, it'd be great. And you talk about Hugh Jackman's timeline playing Wolverine, maybe slowly coming to an end. Same thing with Patrick Stewart being able to pull off Professor X. So I think that this is the right time to do it. And again, I want to get as many of these films in the can as we can.
See, I believe we can get 20 more years of Patrick Stewart playing Professor X. He's an old guy in a wheelchair.
That's a very good point.
Hey, he can play this till he's in his 90s. I mean, he's mentally, Stewart is totally sharp. One of the coolest guys around. Look, I buy this, by the way. I do. I like that they're moving forward with this for a couple of reasons. Number one, Wolverine is the one character they have in this universe, in the cinematic universe as they have it set up right now, where you can have him in any era that you want. You can have him in the pre-First Class days. He's Wolverine. You can have him in the, the First Class, like post-First Class. You can have him there. You can say it's 5 years before the events of the dystopian future that we saw in X-Men Days of Future Past. You can set it there if you want. And at the end, we always got a sense that in the X-Men films, there was a unique relationship between Professor X and Wolverine. And they really started to highlight that at the end of Days of Future Past really beautifully. So I was excited to hear those comments coming from Patrick Stewart. So, and look, the last Wolverine film, while I did not like the third act, I thought the third act kind of fell apart a little bit. Overall, I enjoyed the film. I really did. I liked the kind of tone they set for it. So to see what they do next, now that they got Days of Future Past kind of as a new template for where they want their X universe to go, this could be really cool. Could be a disaster, but it could be really cool. So I'm going to buy it. Clark?
Yeah, John, I buy it for all the reasons you just said. Honestly, I couldn't agree with you more. I dug all of the relationship that came out at the end of Days of Future Past. And honestly, like you were saying, Mark, I mean, you can watch Hugh Jackman do anything, and it's so enjoyable. So, but to me, the thing that really stands out is the chemistry and the relationship between Patrick Stewart and Hugh Jackman in these respective roles. So yeah, why not? I'll buy it, sure. Especially though, if that's going to be the focus of this story, is the two of them together. More of that, I say. Please.
I still like the road idea, the buddy road comedy with the banjo music playing. Where are we going to find a gas station? Okay. All right, folks. Now we've reached that part of the show for Mailbag. If you got a topic or question you'd like us to address on the show, email us anytime at amcmovietalk@gmail.com. Sinead, what do we have?
Lowell Reynolds writes, "This weekend, Chappie is being released, and it's from director Neil Bloom. It's from director Neil Blomkamp, who made District 9. District 9 was widely praised from critics and audience as one of the best sci-fi films ever. However, his next film, Elysium, received mixed reviews. Now, Chappie has been receiving terrible reviews. Many are now wondering if District 9 was a fluke. This has made me think of George Lucas and Star Wars, and the Wachowski brothers and The Matrix. Because their more recent films haven't delivered on the same level as their previous work, many doubt they had anything to do with those films being good at all. Just because a talented filmmaker's last few films were not very good, does that have to take away from what they've done with their best films?
I think and this isn't just true of directors, it's true of actors, it's true of athletes, it's true of artists, it's true of anything like that. You do have to weigh their entire body of work, sure. And so if they put out a few things that are bad, you have to weigh that against a lot of the good things they've done. I don't think it negates the good things they've done. I do take issue with George Lucas being on that list, because George Lucas wasn't just Star Wars. He was Star Wars, Empire, Return of the Jedi, Indiana Jones, like the good Indiana
American
Jones
Graffiti.
trilogy. American Graffiti.
That's what I was going to say.
I always forget
THX 1138.
There we go, TH1138, which was like hailed him as this young up and comer, blah blah, which is why him and Steven Spielberg became friends, was actually because of that film. So I wouldn't include him in that, but the Wachowskis is an interesting name to bring up there. We actually talked about them the other day. I'm off the Wachowski siblings train. They've just put out 3 films in a row to me that aren't very good, but they do make the kind of films that will divide people. Like, there are going to be a lot of people like me that really don't like their films, and there are going to be people that really do enjoy their films. So like Cloud Atlas is a great example of that. That film has people that love it and people that just loathe it. Jupiter Ascending, well, there's no division there. That's just a bad film. Speeder, stuff like that. Now, as far as Neil Blomkamp goes, the dude has to get out of his own mold.
Yes.
Like, all of his films have the same feel. His first 2 films, District 9 and Elysium, was a carbon copy of District 9. When you just jot out what the plot points are, it's a carbon copy. And now he's back to it. And he's got to get out of this thing of wanting his favorite hip hop artist to be in his movies. Because Elysium, remember, it was supposed to be Eminem. It wasn't supposed to be Matt Damon. It was supposed to be Eminem. And so then we went and got Diane. We're just like, and they're horrible in this movie. They're just terrible in it. So I think what we saw from District 9 was not a mirage. I do not think that was fake. I think, though, he's got to evolve and get out of it. Maybe Aliens will be that film to do it. So I don't know. Clark, what do you think about that?
Yeah, I think this, first of all, hi, lol.
Whoa.
Lol. So I think this is a really cool question. I understand his point about the George Lucas thing, because if you look at George Lucas's credits as a director,
True, as
only,
a pure director, yeah.
You know, I take his point. But like Mark said, and that was the thing that stood out to me, you know, Lucas had this American Graffiti, which is considered by a lot to be an American classic, right?
Yeah.
So the point I make in bringing up those 2 films, Star Wars and American Graffiti, is that Lucas never returned as a director to an American Graffiti style movie.
Yep.
He sort of stayed in this universe, the Star Wars universe, which I understand he created, and I don't blame him for not wanting to stay there. But I think that is where perhaps he's getting boxed in. And like you said with Blomkamp, I mean, you know, you're right. These 3 films, they look very similar. And if you think about the Wachowskis, you know, staying in that sci-fi genre, you know, and these big heady concepts, right, in terms of science fiction, all of these directors are super talented directors. There's no question about that. I would like to see them get out of this one genre. And I'd also like to see them maybe start to entertain the idea of directing a script that's not theirs.
Yeah.
I think that as directors, they're all very strong. I'd even throw Shyamalan in there, M. Night Shyamalan. You know, I don't think it was all a mirage with him either. However, once you start to drink your own Kool-Aid, and once you get a little insulated in the world of this is my scripts and my worlds and all these things, it's hard maybe to see through all of that. So I think I'd love to see Blomkamp direct something like House of Cards, an episode of House of Cards. If you think about all of his 3 previous features, they all have strong political commentary. Why not give him characters that are just as diabolical and just as extreme, except played a little bit more in a House of Cards type situation or something like that?
Well, I don't think Blomkamp's getting out of the sci-fi universe anytime soon.
I know,
He's got aliens.
I know.
coming up,
At least it's somebody else's creation that he's doing.
Exactly.
I think that's a great point. I think that when you talk about directors that end up, they have something great come out, and then it's like, like a Shyamalan or like the Wachowskis, I think that it's because there's something very creative about having confines that I think people undervalue. I think that when you look at something like Jaws or something like Star Wars that had production difficulties, and it's hard to get those movies off the ground, and you had to think outside of the box. Once you get the keys to your own kingdom and you're a billionaire and you can do whatever is in your head, it's maybe not the best product to put out. I mean, you look at what the prequels were. George Lucas had total creative control over everything. He literally could dream something and put it on screen, and it didn't work out the way because sometimes you end up sacrificing story and other things. I'm not going to put Neil Blomkamp in that category yet. I love District 9 and I loved Elysium. I thought both those films are great. I think Chappie is one of those things where you can sit back and say, like what John said, maybe I don't put my favorite hip hop artist in something, or maybe I focus on a more coherent story, or I get somebody else to write the script, because Neil Blomkamp has an incredible visual style, and I like that he has some social commentary in his films. I think this guy can knock Aliens out of the park.
Also, he directs actors so well. I mean, I regardless of if, like, I wasn't the biggest fan of Elysium, but I loved the difference in, and I always say his name wrong, Charlotte Copley? Yes, yeah. I loved the difference in the performance between him in District 9 and him in Elysium.
Yeah.
Holy crap. Now, granted, yes, he's an incredible actor. He's proven that. But, you know, Blomkamp seems to get great performances out of his leads regardless of how good the movie is. So I think there's something to be said for that, too. He's not a bad director. It's just, he needs a little variety.
All right, what's next?
David Thompson writes, hello to the AMC crew from UK. Although it's far too early to say until the film is released, the photo released of Leo DiCaprio in The Revenant has already got people saying that this is the role he will win the Oscar for. But the film also stars Tom Hardy, who also gets mentioned in that list of those who should one day win an Oscar. Would you take a wild guess and say that there is a possibility that both Leo and Tom could walk away with Oscars for Best Actor and Best Supporting Actor for The Revenant?
Well, I mean, the big key here about that is who is their director, and it's Alejandro Inarritu, who just, you know, I always say the number one primary, and you just alluded to it, the number one primary job of a director is to get the best performance out of the actors that they have, right? Well, what did he just do with Birdman? Michael Keaton nominated for Best Actor, you had Edward Norton nominated for Best Supporting Actor, and at the SAG Awards, they won Best Ensemble, which means overall, the performances you got out of your whole cast was the best of the year.
Emma Stone as well.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, Emma Stone also got a nomination, right? So now you're taking Leo DiCaprio, who is just every time he's in a movie, he's nominated for Best Actor, it feels like. You get Tom Hardy, who everybody's just waiting for him to put a trophy on his mantle, and you put them in the hands of this kind of director who just brings the absolute best out of actors. I already called it a few weeks ago. I haven't seen one frame of this movie. Leonardo DiCaprio will win Best Actor this year. He will win it this year. Now, so could we get multiple nominations? Absolutely. You can absolutely get multiple nominations out of this with a Tom Hardy. And look, let's say they're both lead characters in it. It is not unprecedented. There have been several films throughout history that have had several performers in the movie both get nominated in the same category. Like Terms of Endearment had 2 Best Actress nominees. I believe Mutiny on the Bounty. I think Mutiny on the Bounty had 3 actors all nominated for Best Lead Actor in a movie.
Wow.
I mean, so that could happen too, but we don't know. We don't know if Hardy's going to be like a supporting character or not. But let's put it this way. Right now, I would be a little bit surprised if we don't see both of these guys nominated this year.
You know, I think every movie Leonardo DiCaprio's in is the one he's going to win his Oscar for, allegedly. And I'm starting to wonder, actually, if DiCaprio is going to sort of take home his Best Actor trophy a la Pacino for Scent of a Woman, right? It's like, you know, if he's going to be in that long line of Oscar oversights until finally nobody can argue anymore, and it's just like, give him his damn Oscar already. So I don't know. The thing that is interesting to me about this pairing is Tom Hardy. I think Tom Hardy, I love watching him play off of other strong leading men, whether it's in a comedic way. To me, that was a wonderful treat in the thing that most people hate, which was This Is War with Chris Pine.
Right.
But he and Chris Pine were so great together.
How well he played off Joel Edgerton in Warrior.
Oh, they're so good. They're so good. And Tom Hardy, I think, is going to have a lot of heat on him after Mad Max comes out.
Yeah.
And everybody loses their mind. So, you know, who knows about Leo this time? I think he's got many more nominations in his future. So if this isn't the one, he'll get one eventually. But I think the one maybe to keep an eye out for is Tom Hardy.
I think Leo, like you, I gave Leo the Oscar a few weeks ago. So you know what? You're going to torture yourself. You're going to have a beard, and Naratu's doing it. You win the Oscar, kid. I think Hardy will end up getting snubbed. I think he'll be in maybe the top 10 for supporting actor, and it just won't get narrowed down when they actually release the 5 candidates, simply because I think that Tom Hardy is great, but I think that people are going to look at Leo's performance, and that's going to outshine everything else. Because from what I gather from looking at one picture of The Revenant is that it's going to be Leo's story. It's that people are going after him, but that's going to be a survivalist movie where there's a little bit of a Reese Witherspoon and Wild feel to it, where you have this one person trying to survive against the elements. Again, I don't know anything about this movie. That's what I gather from seeing one Polaroid of it. I think that Tom Hardy's a great actor. I think Locke, he could have been nominated for an Oscar for that in a different year, so he will win eventually. I don't think it's going to happen for The Revenant.
But couldn't you make the same argument? I was going to play devil's advocate for a second. Talk about how, it's really going to be DiCaprio's film. He's going to be everyone's going to be looking at DiCaprio. Blah. Couldn't the same argument be made about this year with Birdman? Everybody's talking about Michael Keaton, right? This was his film, shine on him. And who would have thought, 9 months ago, that Edward Norton's in it, that he would get an Academy Award nomination. I think it could work. You're probably right, but I think it can work.
You gave DiCaprio the Oscar with me. We were there.
Oh, yes, he's going to get it. He's absolutely going to get it. All right, folks, listen, we're going to take a little bit of time to take some of your questions from Twitter as well. If you want to get your tweet question to us, you can send a question into us using the hashtag AMC Movie Talk. So just tweet out a question using the hashtag AMC Movie Talk, and maybe we'll see it on the show. So, Sinead, what do we got?
Ricky tweets, is In the Heart of the Sea still going to be in March? The posters and trailers say yes, but Flickster says no. Who's right?
Flickster is right. They moved The Heart of the Sea to December, I believe. They moved it off into December. They just feel it has a lot of awards potential, which is good news for someone like me, because that says to me the studio really likes this film, and they think this is going to be an Oscar caliber film, and then they moved it. It was weird. We had actually Ron Howard, who directed the film, actually introduced AMC Movie Talk for us a little while ago, and he, even on that introduction, he's like, I hope you'll join us in May at AMC Theaters to watch In the Heart of the Sea. 2 days later, we're on, it's not coming out in May anymore. So as far as I know, but have you guys heard anything different?
No. And I think they really want, it's Hemsworth, right? He's our leading man. Man, they really want Hemsworth.
The right Hemsworth.
The right Hemsworth. The good Hemsworth. The good Hemsworth. The handsome Hemsworth. They really want him to be an Oscar contender. I think if you saw Rush, which I did, Howard really likes him. And Howard has a way of kind of had a way of being a star maker in terms of that legit street cred. I'm an actor. So I think this is a good sign for Chris Hemsworth too.
It's just too bad Chris Hemsworth has to go against Leo DiCaprio to get that Oscar. But yeah, I mean, I like when a studio moves this when they're positioning for Oscar bait. I think that makes sense. Especially, I mean, I saw the trailer and it looks great. It looks like it could be an award caliber film. Plus, I think it'd be a good movie to see around the holidays. I think this could be a family thing where it gets a little intense, but the whole family can get something out of this story. So, well, I mean, now I don't get to see it for another 8 months, so that's kind of a bummer. But I think it's the right move.
All right, what's next?
At Gamer Joe asks, when is Jedi Council coming back?
Oh, yeah. Hey, really good question. Next week, actually. Jedi Council launches next week. We're in AMC Movie News Phase 3 right now. So we have a few shows launching next week, including Jedi Council. So keep up to date. Follow us on Twitter and Facebook and all that kind of stuff, and you'll see when things are coming. But I believe next Thursday is the first episode of Jedi Council. The set for it's right over there. You can't see it, but it's right over there. It's coming together.
I'm looking at a character from the Star Wars universe.
I see Yoda right there. Oops. I mean, should I not have said that?
Just the little green Muppet. Yeah, it's a really cool
David
set,
Prowse is in studio with us right now.
Right.
Just having lunch, drinking a Coors Light in the corner.
The original voice for Darth Vader I was.
All right, what's next?
Luke tweets, do you think there's a chance for Unbreakable sequels? Patton Oswalt had some great pitches for them.
Unbreakable is one of those films that everybody says, that movie doesn't need a sequel. This is one of those movies that probably could have done with a sequel. I mean, the ending was really nice, and I appreciate it for a standalone. With where the Mighty Shamhammer is right now, I don't see anybody going up to I mean, he could even put Will Smith as his lead actor in the movie, and it didn't work out. No, I don't think any studio's going to walk up to Shammy and hand him a bag full of money and say, yeah, go make a movie. We believe in you, kid. I just don't think this is going to happen right now. Do you guys see it any differently?
I don't know. That pitch, Patton's pitch was pretty awesome. I don't know if you guys have seen it, but Google it. Unbreakables.
Not as good as his Marvel Star Wars crossover pitch.
Nothing can be good as his Marvel Star Wars crossover pitch. But, here's the one argument I would say where I could could see it maybe happening, because you're right, Shamalama Ding Dong's having a little bit of trouble. But that being said, you know, superhero movies, everybody's trying to get into the game. And the idea that this is a take on a superhero that is not based on a comic, that is not in, it's more grounded in reality.
Yeah, going back to our first thing, right? A very gritty, real feeling
Very
one.
gritty.
Yeah.
And you could do it for pretty inexpensive. I see like Chronicle style filmmaking, maybe. So, you know, maybe it might happen. This is one where I actually would, after I watched Patton's pitch, I was like, I want to see that right now.
The big question mark, though, is who has ownership of the property. If it's owned by Shamhammer, I don't see him giving it, saying, yeah, studio, go ahead, take it, and let another director direct it. If it is the studios, then I completely reverse my position and totally go with you. Then at that point, I think the studio could make it happen. I'd be on board for it.
Oh, yeah. I think that's the way to do it. As much as I love a good redemption story, I think that it'd be the wrong play for Shyamalan to do this film, because it's been too long. And now it just looks like a desperation move if the same director over 10 years later has had all these misses and it says, now maybe I'll make a sequel to something that people did like. I wouldn't like that play, but you're right. If they get a different director to come in and treat that source material, give a different spin on it going forward, I'd be up for it.
All right, what's next?
Thomas tweets, will the end of Avengers 2 be too similar to the first? Fight a bunch of robots, and once they beat Ultron, the rest shut down.
You know what? A buddy of mine from Canada and I were on the phone the other night, and that is the one word we had watching that trailer. It's like, wait a minute, because you see in Star Wars, okay, just take out the droid control ship, all droids fall asleep. In Avengers, just take out that one ship, somehow these organic physical beings, if their ship blows up, they die. Okay, so that's convenient, and that's the one fear I had watching this thing, because you know Ultron, it's a great shot. Ultron's on the street. I think it's Captain America says, "Is that all you got?" And Ultron, and you know James Spader raises his hand, and all his little Ultron bots come running out. It's you know, Hawkeye's gonna sneak up behind him and put an arrow through his neck, and then all the Ultron bots will die. I hope they don't, because that would be a cheap cop out if they do that. I really hope that's not the way they're going. What do you guys think is gonna happen?
Look, I think a lot of people root for superheroes to die in movies now, which I'm not a fan of. I think that you're gonna get a real dark ending with Age of Ultron, though. I think this trailer was set up to appeal to a huge fan base that wants to see the Avengers again. And that first trailer that we saw with Ultron singing the Pinocchio song, that was so dark and so terrifying that I think they needed a trailer to offset that a little bit, to say, hey, it's still the superheroes you know and love. They're going to be cracking some one-liners. There's going to be a lot of destruction going on, but they ain't going to be eating shawarma at the end of this thing.
No.
Mark Ellis, I think,
very different ending.
Yeah, I think you're onto something there. And as a lifelong Joss Whedon fan, I know he's not afraid to kill some people, especially your favorite people, and so I you know, in Joss we trust. I'm fine with saying that, but I agree with you, Mark. I don't think that this is going to be a happy ending.
All right, folks. Well, that will do it for us for this installment of AMC Movie Talk. Thank you so much for joining us. Listen, don't forget, lots of great films playing at AMC Theaters right now. Head on over to www.amctheaters.com for your theater, showtime, and of course, your movie ticket information. If you want an audio-only version of this episode, look in the description of this video and you'll find a link to our podcast feed. And don't forget to click the thumbs up button, subscribe to our YouTube channel, and make sure you share this video around on your Facebook and on your Twitter. I want to thank the people sitting at the table with me. First of all, sitting to my left, our very special guest today, Miss Clark Wolf. Clark, where can people find you online?
I am on the Instagrams and the Twitters at Clark Wolf, Clark with an E, Wolf with an E.
Sitting over here, of course, our very own Mr. Mark Ellis. Mark, where can people find you online?
At 5150 Ellis, Twitter and Instagram. And my stand-up tour is taking me to Chicago and Columbus, Ohio in the next couple of weeks. Go to markellislive.com for all the dates and ticket info.
And of course, our lovely host today, Miss Sinead DeFries. Sinead, where can people find you?
I'm on Twitter and Instagram at Sinead DeFries and at thatsosinead.com.
And you can find me on the various social media networks just at John Campia. Thanks a lot for joining us, guys. My name is John Campia for AMC Movie News, and until next time, bye-bye.